Hey, welcome to CXD, the podcast from Engine, where we explore the art and science of reimagining customer experiences. Now, we've been focusing a lot on aviation lately, but today I wanted to shift gears and dive into the challenges of customer experience within rail networks. Now, rail is increasingly becoming an alternative to airlines on certain routes. And in our last episode, we discussed how more aviation-style thinking is being applied to rail to enhance passenger comfort and services. This innovation is vital because we need to get people out of their cars and onto public transport. And for most non-local travel, trains are the closest credible alternative. So in the next few episodes, we'll be exploring some of these challenges in more depth. And to kick things off, I'm excited to introduce my guest, Will Gallagher, Chief Strategy and Development Officer for East West Rail here in the UK. Now, since 2017, through EWR, Will has been instrumental in shaping the thinking on future rail travel. Now, Will is a multifaceted leader, a strategist, a former chief operating officer, social reformer, and former special advisor to the Ministry of Justice. Will, it's fantastic having you on the show. And perhaps you can start by telling us a bit more about how your experiences in social reform at the National Citizen Service perhaps connects with your strategic work you're now doing at East West Rail.
Yeah, thanks, Ollie, and great to be here. Glad you had me on. What's always motivated me is things that, doing a job that actually sort of changes people's lives and actually helps change the country for the better. And it's in that way that what most motivates me in my current role is that East West Rail, a railway that connects Oxford and Cambridge via a new rail link, is actually, on one level, yes, it's a transport project, but it's actually about that connectivity completely changing the economic prospects of that region, providing people who live there with amazing job opportunities, allowing businesses to grow, allowing more investment to come into the UK. And that is investment that would only come into this part of the country in the UK because of its unique characteristics. So it's not just good for the region, it's actually good for the country as a whole. And so, for me, the thing that motivates me is the railway actually as a source, or a driving force, for that matter, of change. And I think that sort of unites what I was doing in previous roles. And I think it's one of the most powerful things about the way we should be thinking about railways going forward as well.
As this platform of change, it's incredible. And yeah, when you think about it, what it can actually do, how it can, change people's lives, where they can live, where they can work, how it can, reinvigorate regions, communities. It's impressive, isn't it? The sort of, the business case for railways is massive, unimaginable.
Yeah, you only have to look at Cambridge is a massively growing economy. But there's no doubt that if more people can't get access to the jobs that are happening in Cambridge, that investment will stop coming here. And that will have a detrimental effect on the huge growth and the huge benefits that we're seeing in Cambridge. Equally, though, right now, places like Bedford, even though they're not that far in distance terms, are actually, almost no one in Bedford has access to the jobs that exist in Cambridge because it's impossible to get to them.
Yeah.
It is possible for people who live in Bedford to get to jobs in London, but it's not possible for them to get to those great jobs in Cambridge. And not only that, but actually businesses then, who bluntly will probably look at Cambridge in some instances and go, it's quite expensive to be based there, are able to move and be based in Bedford. And that brings economic activity to Bedford. It brings more people into the town centre. And it makes a huge difference to the economic opportunities of that place. So, for me, we spend a lot of time talking about what it does and what the railway can do for the economies of Oxford and Cambridge, but actually it has huge power for the economies of all the places along, the route. Milton Keynes is already I think, one of the most productive cities in the UK, seeing massive growth and, talking to the local leaders there, they're massively excited about that. But they see how that can be even more powerful when it's connected to those broader opportunities that exist in Oxford. That'll be happening next year, but in Cambridge in the years to come.
So going up a level and thinking about sort of some of the overarching challenges that railways are facing, could you paint a little bit more of a picture about that? So the obviously challenges that EWR face in what they're doing, but other operators, other railways, what's pressuring the agenda for them today?
It used to be that railways sort of lived off a commuter service, and that's what a lot of people use them for. And they are now sort of post-COVID adjusting to, well, railways are much more mixed use. So leisure travel, people travelling at different times of the day. And I think that's trying to work out what that means, and what that means for the type of experience they need to offer, the services that they need to offer. And so that requires quite a different way of thinking, because it's sort of, in that context, your market isn't automatic, your market is earned. And so therefore, thinking about what you do to earn that market is really important. And the destinations you serve, and the service that you offer. And I go back to East West Rail as an example, which is we are specifically thinking about the type of people who are going to use our railway, and the experience that they're going to want. And we're also thinking about the businesses who will benefit from the railway existing, in terms of their teams being able to get to work, and those sorts of things. And that is actively informing the choices that we are making right now. And I think that lesson applies more generally to the industry, which is, are we being really purposeful about who is going to be using the railway? Why are they going to be using the railway? What are they expecting from the railway service that they are going to take? Because that is the only way we're actually going to drive up the number of people who are choosing the railway over, for example, taking their car, or for longer distances, taking flights and those sorts of things.
And that has to be a real positive choice. So your competition is not necessarily between competing railway companies, but in fundamentally other modes of transport.
Yes, and I think in rail, you're absolutely right. This is not a competition between the West Coast Main Line and the East Coast Main Line, as it were, and particularly with the sort of rail reform agenda that isn't going to see sort of different companies operating those lines, but it's more how we encourage more people to choose rail. And also by getting rail to be sufficiently attractive that people choose to make journeys that they otherwise wouldn't make, because those journeys are really powerful, either in economic terms or, for that matter, in social terms as well.
Because that's incredible. When you almost boil it down like that, and you kind of go, when you're comparing experiences like for someone kind of going, am I going to drive somewhere? And cars are incredibly comfortable and incredibly convenient. You step out your door, you step in your car, and off you go. How you make a railway experience compete with that is an enormous undertaking. And I guess part of the thing you say is one thing you can be doing is unlocking different types of journeys that you wouldn't otherwise be thinking of doing or wouldn't want to do in your car.
Yeah, and I think that's And to make those journeys possible, you've got to recognize that rail is never a one mode choice.
Right.
So to get from home to your destination, rail is never the only mode you're going to use, because rail only gets you from station to station. And therefore,
to the station. Yeah, right.
So it's how you think about, and in fairness, how railways think about what that end-to-end journey looks like. And you're beginning to see, you go on the train line or something like that, and you're seeing some integration with Uber and those sorts of things. But to be really powerful, you've got to crack the thing that, people, in the industry have been wrestling with for some time. But it's how you integrate public transport journeys across, walking, cycling, buses, trains, and how you get all of that to fit together. Yeah. And it's really hard when you've got a station at the end of a long country lane that doesn't have a pavement. That's not going to work. Or doesn't have, or has a cycle path but no cycle parking, or where the bus arrives 10 minutes after the train leaves. So you've really got to think through what that journey for that customer looks like. And then you've actually got to get quite a number of different parties to play together. As ever, data is probably your key friend here, but it's not an easy task, but it's one we have to solve.
But here you talk, it strikes me that sort of the organisational, the corporate sort of skill set and capabilities that a railway company now needs are vastly different to what they must have been traditionally. Traditionally, perhaps much more like an engineering business, engineering mindset, but now it's about integration, digitization, social reform, how all those things come together. The challenge of shifting the thinking within those organizations must be immense.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And I think there's two dimensions to that as well. There's probably the type of organization that we are, which is developing a new railway service that is designing new infrastructure and kit to do that, which of course has a big engineering element to it. And we operate in a safety critical environment. So all of those things are true, but being really clear why you are doing it, who you are there to serve, and what that means for the design that you build. It's really interesting. Where you put the entrance to a station dramatically changes how accessible it is, the level of economic activity that you can create around it. All of those things really matter. So when you're doing the design, you have to have thought about those things. And so how you bring together those multidisciplinary teams so that the people who are thinking about the way it's going to be operated, the people who think about the way it's going to be maintained, all of which are super important, are also working alongside the people who are thinking not just about how the customers are going to behave, but how the customers fit into the broader social or economic purpose that the railway has, and the economic growth that you're trying to achieve. Because here, we're not just thinking about the customers of today, we're thinking about the customers of the future, because, if businesses are going to move to the area, if the talent mix is going to be different, you've got to anticipate what all of that looks like, which is really exciting. It's a really exciting conversation when you get that team sort of working together, and how that drives the real choices that you make in the day-to-day design of the railway. And it's one of those things that I come back to quite a lot. And this gets to the heart of one of the things that really sort of drives making rail the mode of choice for people, because your design decisions really influence how you can integrate the rail bit of the journey into people's home to destination journey. Because you can either make it really easy or really hard to be joined up with other modes of transport. They also actually drive how expensive it is to operate the railway. And, you know, sometimes in the industry, if we're not careful, we see, you know, a good customer service as a luxury that can't be afforded, whereas actually I see it completely the other way around, which is, if you want to attract customers and provide them with a great service, one of the key things is being able to offer affordable tickets, and therefore designing a really affordable railway that is affordable to operate is part of driving a really good customer experience and attracting really good customers. So I think you can get cost-effective design, good customer experience, and attracting more people to the railway by providing affordable tickets as that's the sweet spot we've all got to aim for. I don't think they're competing. I think they're mutually reinforcing.
Could you elaborate on that? So what would be some of the decisions that might be being made within that to, you know, an efficient experience, a great customer service, an affordable ticket? How does that come together?
You know, one of the things that is particularly striking about the railway is that demographically, it tends to attract wealthier customers. It's not the mode of choice for those on lower incomes.
Yeah.
But what's actually really important, particularly about East West Rail, but more generally, is lots of the places where businesses are congregated are becoming increasingly unaffordable for people to live.
Right, okay.
And so if you can open up places that are a bit further afield, but that are much more commutable by rail, that are more affordable to live,
yeah,
then you actually help the economic growth to continue. Now, that means your mode of transport has to be affordable, because if it's not, then you've created a connection to a more affordable place with an unaffordable transport connection.
Yeah.
And so to achieve the economic purpose, you've got to make rail travel affordable. You also need to recognize that people are not going to live in close proximity to the station, because, you know, it tends to be that living accommodation in closest proximity to the station is not necessarily the most affordable either.
Yes. Yeah.
And so therefore, the way you connect your bus connections to the station, which then is providing an affordable ticket to the place of work, you know, all of that has to be seamless. So your station design needs to have good public transport connectivity, and your the way you then think about what you do in the way you design the railway to be maintained, the way you design it to be operated, those sorts of things can significantly reduce the cost of doing that, which overall helps you reduce the ticket prices. Now, I know, and there'll be people listening to this who go, well, operating costs and ticket prices aren't directly linked. That is true in the railway right now. But I think with the reforms that are going on in the rail industry, I think that will become closer to being true. And therefore, I do think I think it is something that we should focus on, because it is about, you know, that mindset.
Yeah.
You know, is about, you know, getting closer to the heart of what we want, of the customers that we're trying to to serve and what we're trying to achieve. I'm trying to think of a specific example where we'd make a design choice. I think one of the interesting examples here for me is stations.
Right.
And you've got to be really clear what a station is for.
I was going to say, it sounds like its purpose is changing from being just a point of, to get on and get off a train. It sounds like, from what you described before, it has a much bigger part to play in a community.
It does, and that's really interesting, because there will be some places where stations form the heart of a community.
Yeah.
Where they form the basis on which the place around them develops in quite a high density, because you tend to get higher densities around the station, both in terms of economic activity, but also in terms of residential uses as well. And in those instances, thinking about that station as the thing that unlocks that area is absolutely critical. And your station building should reflect that. Because it's the seed that allows all those other things to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
That doesn't, however, mean that every station needs to look like that.
No.
You've got to be clear that that station has that purpose. Yeah, yeah. In other places, where what you're doing is you are creating a means for people to travel to somewhere else, or where you're providing access to a pre-existing economic centre.
Yeah.
In that context, you may well decide that actually a much cheaper station design is what people is actually sufficient. But then, even though it's a cheaper station design, being really clear about what are people using that station for. They're not necessarily using it as a place to have coffee and those sorts of things, or as part of the sort of immediate economic centre. But what they are looking for is a place to stay warm and dry whilst waiting for a train.
Yeah, yeah.
And so design your station to do that. I think there's a sometimes, again, it's part of the cultural change that is sometimes necessary, is that people think if you're really focused on your customer, it means you're constantly thinking about a limo service and a glass palace of a station. But that is actually not, I think,
you can reduce it down and kind of go, what is the most important thing?
What is the most important things? And I think that is it. I definitely, on East West Rail, find myself arguing for basic, affordable, warm, dry, easily accessible stations in some places.
Yeah.
Because that is what the customer wants, and it what helps us drive our economic purpose, and it helps us achieve those more affordable operating costs and therefore the lower ticket prices.
Yeah. Yeah.
But equally, in other places, I'm a passionate advocate for the station that is the anchor, that is the catalyst, that is the foundation for, an economic hub.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the heart of, in some places on East West Rail, actually a whole new town.
Obviously, to get people onto the railways, we have to make sure it's as accessible and inclusive as it could possibly be. That must be a big agenda to get that right. Is that the case? Is that easy to do?
You're absolutely right. And we've all seen in the media, very recently, stories of high-profile individuals, whether that's Frank Gardner, whether that's Tanny Gray-Thompson, who have found themselves sort of left stranded because we haven't, the industry hasn't got this right. And a lot of the challenge is often legacy infrastructure that hasn't been designed to be accessible for everyone. What we're very mindful of is that we actually get the unique opportunity to try to design out all of that friction from the start. And so we have an accessibility advisory panel that is working with us right now, not just thinking about what service we're going to offer when we open, but actually what is the infrastructure that we're designing. And yes, that's things like level boarding and those sorts of things, but it actually goes much further in terms of, the integration between car park and public realm and the station and onto the train, because you ideally want to get to a place where, I think on one level, it's great when when it all connects right and people, are being met in the right place and being given the right help and they're standing at the right door when the train arrives and all that sort of stuff. It's good when that works, but what is even better is when, a person in the wheelchair or whatever doesn't need any other treatment than absolutely everybody else gets to use that service. And I think the other thing is, and really important, we see it this way. Accessibility isn't just about those with physical disabilities. It happens to so many people over the course of their lives, whether it's with a pram or all of those things should be influencing our thinking. And one of the things that we note quite a lot of is people with mental health challenges who particularly find the station and the interchange experience really difficult and really stressful.
Right.
And again, we're trying to make sure that in the way we design that station experience and in the way that we provide information and when we provide information, and thinking about how all of that is built into the data we need to hold when we need to hold it. All of that comes back to choices we can make now, not when we're up and operating.
It's good. You're providing a service to such a diverse group of people. The general public, so diverse, and it feels like increasingly now there are far more sort of polarized needs that people have, and how we understand those needs for those individuals, things that are obvious and things that aren't, and then how you get a service that works really well. I mean, just think about it from a demographics point of view. Much younger travelers who are incredibly digitally savvy and want to interact with their services in that way versus older, more traditional passengers who don't. Having a service that connects those disparate needs together and makes it a safe and enjoyable experience is tremendously challenging.
It is, and that's why a really good understanding of who's likely to be using your railway, what their needs are, anticipating that it is so important. And I think it's a really interesting thing when you operate in a sort of public service environment, because for the private sector, excellent customer service isn't seen as a nice to have. It's seen as a route to driving profitability in the end, ultimately, and driving shareholder value. I think sometimes in the public sector, if we're not careful, it's seen as a nice to have, an extra cost. Whereas I think we need to spin that round, because actually, if something like a railway has a social and economic purpose, so if East West Rail, for example, or if a commuter service into London is about allowing businesses to grow because they've got access to, a broader pool of people and those sorts of things, then making sure the access to that pool of people is as broad as it possibly can be, so that it is catering to, the range of people's needs who you want to go to work in a particular place or whatever, is so important. So just as for the private sector, customer experience is key to profitability, so too in the public sector, customer experience is key to your social and economic purpose for which you're building the railway in the first place.
Totally. And it's through that you're making the right decisions about the right things. It's through thinking of that experience you're able to operationally do things more efficiently. You're not over-serving people. You're not underserving them either. You're getting it just right as you're going through that experience, and getting it just right helps you manage your costs, and managing your costs helps you extend your network and create new opportunities for people to live and work in different areas and get people out of cars. I mean, it's a thing. It's nice hearing it kind of positioned in that way, this importance of customer experience. Do you think that thinking is clearly evident through the work that EWR does, but do you think that's an alien idea in other businesses within the sector? Are they still learning that lesson, or is everybody moving towards that?
It's a good question. I think an honest reflection is that the industry is on a journey in this respect.
Yeah.
And the logic behind the government's rail reform, and if you think about when Andrew Haines, the current chief exec of Network Rail, first joined Network Rail, he talked about putting passengers first. That was a key thing, a key part of what he championed. I think there is a journey that we are on. I say we have the benefit that we can design with customers in mind, whereas a lot of the industry are having to cope with the fact that things weren't necessarily designed with the customer in mind in the first place, and how do they deliver the best service they can in those circumstances. I think one of the things that is also sort of important is railways are intensely operationally complex.
Yeah.
And they are safety critical. And I think there is sometimes a view that in the end, operational efficiency and safety would trump customer experience. And there is a view that those things are held in tension. But in much the same way as I was saying earlier on, that I don't think customer experience and cost are necessarily in tension. I don't think safety, operability, and customer experience are in tension too. And part of the cultural change in the industry is actually helping people develop solutions that allow not to see trade-offs, but to see synergies. And that's where getting teams working cross-functionally as early as you possibly can is critical, because that's the things that allows them to go, well, I'm trying to achieve this, but I also want to achieve that. Well, what if we did this together, and that then gets you a better outcome? And so the more you can drive cross-functional working into areas where typically and traditionally there are sort of people who own that space,
very siloed. Yeah,
you unlock an opportunity that you wouldn't otherwise see.
Yeah, I was going to ask about from your experience, someone out there wanting to kind of begin to make inroads into this, beginning to make a case for customer experience, to begin to kind of think about it in their organization, how to go about doing that. And you're saying that collaboration and co-creation is key. What other advice would you give to sort of get people going on this journey?
For me, I think three things. One, a really clear understanding of your purpose.
Right.
What are you doing this for? What is your motivator? And
that's beyond, but hearing what you said, but that's beyond commercial. I mean, you spoke earlier about a very kind of, there's a social and an economic vision beyond the organization of what you were trying, your part in the world, basically.
Yeah. So I am really clear that East West Rail exists to unlock sustainable economic growth for Oxford, Cambridge, and the communities in between, that attracts billions of pounds worth of investment to the UK and improves the quality of life of people living here. I'm really clear that's what we're about. And so when we think about our customer experience, that's what we're here to do. So being really clear about your purpose is number one. Number two is then using data and insight to understand what enables you to drive that purpose.
Yeah.
So for me, for example, I'm really focused on, what is it that's going to enable people to use this railway to get to a job?
Yeah.
What is it that's going to allow businesses to think this railway means they can relocate all the way along the line of the route? Mm-hmm. So that means a really deep understanding of the data about what that person is, what those companies want, all of that sort of stuff. So really clear understanding of why you're doing it, using the data and insight to understand what you need to do. And then the third thing is using cross-functional teams, because if you just set out a set of, here's my set of requirements, I know why I'm doing it, I know what I need to do, here's my set of requirements, then, if you're not careful, siloed teams or teams who are used to doing their role in a traditional way will come back to you and go, yeah, sorry, but safety wins out, or cost wins out, and actually go, no. There's a way where not tension, but synergy is what we can achieve.
Yeah.
And then you begin to get the solutions that really work, which means you still do all the things that the railway is really good at.
Yeah.
But also you start to develop a railway that is delivering its social and economic purpose, which is ultimately why government will be investing in it.
Yeah. And that sounds brilliant. I love that. So like three-step plan. But from a governance point of view, how do you begin to sort of organize that and marshal that within an organization? Is that, who's on the hook to make sure that happens? Is it everybody's responsibility? Do you have new teams, new roles doing different things?
Yeah, so we very early on at East West Rail set up a customer strategy team.
Yeah.
And that wasn't there to think about, it wasn't there to think about the details of ticket pricing. It wasn't there to think about how many call center operators we need or anything else like that. It was very focused on what is the experience we want to provide based upon the purpose that we've got. And how are we going to design the infrastructure? Because that's the first thing you get to do that. And then we began to turn that into things that people who traditionally design railways could engage with.
Yeah.
And we start to get into conversations with people who are traditionally designing railways about, this is what we're trying to achieve. This is why we're trying to do it, helping them understand that.
Yeah.
And actually trying to get your engineers and your designers to walk in the shoes of those customers as well. Getting that perspective so that we could articulate in a way that is directly relevant to the people who are then going to be designing the railway, and having a means of checking back, and making sure that has been done, so that in governance terms, as you say, not only have we got teams of people who we've got working together, but also as designs are developed, as changes are made, that they are signed off by, all the various interests to say, yes, this works. Because, of course, technical and safety sign-off are absolutely critical and are standard in the railway. But I also want to make sure, and we do as an organisation, make sure we're signing off that this is going to deliver our benefits, that it's going to work from a customer experience point of view, it's going to work from an accessibility point of view. So cross-functional teams, but cross-functional governance as well.
Brilliant. Will, it's inspiring listening to you talk. It really is. I was just wondering, to wrap this up, to ask you as a rail user yourself, what would be the one thing you would like to see within that experience that would really make it sing for you?
So I'm definitely one of the people who wants the most frictionless experience I can get.
Yeah.
I normally, my experience with the railway is normally being headphones in, on a call, trying to find my ticket on a different app, trying to work out what platform I'm supposed to be on, and to not trip over whilst doing all of those things in the middle of a work call. And I think that's quite a lot of people's experience most of the day, particularly now we're not in an environment where we're in the office all the time.
Yeah.
And so, and how you can navigate the whole of that experience, really without friction, where the information that's being provided to you is intuitive, and anticipating the things you're going to be interested in and the platform that you need to be at. All of those sorts of things are, for me, what would make my life easier. So to get all the noise out the way, as it were.
Yeah. And the best experience, or the best service being like an invisible service. It all just happens and off you go.
Yeah.
And then, of course, for people who want to have a different experience, that they can easily have that too. And
I think that's absolutely the thing, because there will be people who want the reassurance of, yes, head in this direction, or you've got a question and you don't need to buy this one, you can buy that one, and of course people want that. And as I say, there is also a for me, again, there'll be a time when tech fails and you just want someone there who actually has the information to help you get done what you need to get done. So this is definitely not an argument for no people on the railway, but it is an argument for making sure that if you want it to be frictionless, it can be.
Yeah.
Because actually, if you can make it frictionless for the people who want it to be that, you free up
more resource. Yeah.
People to actually take time, because the worst thing in terms of experience is for the people who do want and need that type of help and support and reassurance, that the person who is with them and working to help them doesn't have the time, is distracted and is trying to do 10 other things. I think it's one of those, I've said it a lot today. I don't think many of these things are trade-offs, actually. I think most of them have synergies.
Yeah, no, totally. Will, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on this show. It's been fantastic. The things I'm taking away from this are, a higher purpose and how important that is. Having that vision and making sure you're sort of, directing yourself towards that. The way that collaboration is absolutely key. The way that, being more conscious about the experiences you're creating helps you to manage your resources more, be more efficient. Lower costs, open things up is absolutely incredible. It's been brilliant. I wish you all the very best with it all, and I'm looking forward to traveling on those trains soon and
next
seeing that
year Oxford and Milton Keynes will be there.
Okay, good stuff, fantastic.
Brilliant.
Will, thank you for coming on the show. Okay, so thanks for joining us on CXD, and don't forget to follow and share CXD on all your channels, and stay tuned for the next episode. Okay, until next time, all the best.